Chapter 4. At night, I lay on the rooftop of the ashram, gazing into the starlit Vrindavan sky. Peacocks carried on a dialogue, and the night guards protected the village by loudly calling out to one another the names of God. Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam. But of all the sounds of the Vrindavan night, the one that most captivated my ears was the melody of the Hare Krishna mantra, floating in the breeze from far away. Alternating voices of an old man and woman sang through an amplified speaker all night, every night. These sounds, the guards, the peacocks, the old man and woman singing, created a spiritual symphony that stirred my heart. I thought back to that aged sadhu who had written me a message with a piece of chalk on his broken slate. Was I becoming crazy for Krishna here in magical Vrindavan? Traditionally, devotees circumambulate holy places like Vrindavan as an act of worship. One night, a mystical force drew me from the rooftop and onto that dusty pathway that wound around the town. Guided by the moonlight, I roamed along the riverbank path that led into the forest. From a distant place, a sound drew me. As I came closer, my anticipation soared. Could it be the same song sung by an old man and woman that had been charming me to sleep each night? I yearned to find its origin. The closer I came, the louder the mantra grew. Yes, it is the same song. Soon I found myself in a quaint temple of Hanuman, the divine monkey who personifies ecstatic devotion, where a man and woman in their late 70s were sitting on the floor chanting, their eyes shut in intense absorption. They were clothed in worn white cloth and appeared to be farmers. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I joined them in chanting the familiar melody. When we later parted ways, they invited me to return for lunch the next day. The next afternoon, I stepped from the dusty footpath into Hanuman's temple. Not knowing why, I was brimming with anticipation. Hardly a minute had passed when an Indian man in his mid-20s approached me. "Maharaji wants to meet you now," he said. "Me?" I asked, pointing to my own chest. "Who is Maharaji, and how does he know me?" "Oh, he knows all about you." "Will you be so kind to tell me about Maharaji?" I asked. "Not now. Maharaji is waiting for you. We'll talk later." Taking my hand, he led me into a sunny courtyard, where a round man, beaming a beatific smile, sat cross-legged on a wooden bed, a faded checkered blanket wrapped around his body. I drew closer. His face, framed by white stubble, glowed with an otherworldly joy. His squinting eyes seemed to penetrate through the windows of mine and into the mysteries of my life. This was Neem Karoli Baba. While I was living in the Himalayas, I had heard of his extraordinary qualities. His followers affectionately addressed him as Maharaji. As I approached, he was speaking in Hindi to a few Indian disciples who sat on the ground in a semicircle around him. Seeing me, he broke into a contagious smile and welcomed me. He raised his index finger and spoke to me through a translator. "You have forsaken wealth and comforts in search of enlightenment, and with great struggle have come to India. Now you travel alone and cry for God while your family far away cries for you. With a gracious swoop of his hand, he motioned for me to sit with the others. "Have no fears," he said, so serious that his brow furrowed and lips tightened. "Rejoice to bear all difficulties. Krishna has heard your prayers and brought you to Vrindavan. By chanting the name of Rama and Krishna, everything is accomplished." "But," he said, shaking his head, "people are creating a hell by their addiction to criticizing and fighting. Do not judge others or fall into those egoistic ways." He seemed to know everything about me and spoke just the words I needed to hear. I was both charmed and amazed. I asked, "But almost the whole world has fallen into that trap. How do I avoid it?" His eyes twinkled as he smiled and said, "Love everyone, serve everyone, and feed everyone. Serve like Hanuman, without selfishness and greed. This is the key to realizing God." Assuming the mood of a playful child, he put his hand to his mouth as if eating and invited us to take the sacred food. As we entered the special hall for a meal, I expressed to my guide how eager I was to hear about his guru. He obliged and said, "I'm from the village of Nandital in the Himalayas, and from childhood I've loved Maharaji." We sat in lines on the floor. A devotee placed leaf plates in front of us and filled them with scoops of wonderful food. My host was dressed in a button-down white shirt and pants, his wavy black hair oiled and neatly combed. After reciting a short prayer, he related some memories of Neem Karoli Baba. "Maharaji is a Siddha Purusha, a perfected being. I have personally witnessed his knowledge of past, present, and future. Actually, he always knows where I am and what I'm doing." He sipped from his clay cup of a cooling yogurt drink called lassi. "Let me tell you something else," he added. "Maharaji is sometimes in two distant places at the same time. This has been documented. We are always expecting him to appear or disappear at the least expected moment. He's unpredictable. At any moment, he may appear or disappear, chastise or praise, speak in riddles or profound truths, or instruct someone to renounce the world, or get married. But the one thing we know for sure, he always brings out the very best in us and carries us closer to God." He smiled with pride. "Neem Karoli Baba, although a grave yogi, can be so charming in his playfulness, just like Hanuman." I was served steaming halava, farina sautéed in butter and steamed in sweet syrup. The delectable aroma filled the room. As we ate, Neem Karoli Baba appeared in the doorway. Noting us, relishing our food, he smiled with joy. I rejoiced too, seeing his sweet mood. He personified everything he taught us. Love everyone, serve everyone, and feed everyone. Just like Hanuman. The next day, I returned and found Maharaji surrounded by a few followers, reciting the story of Hanuman's devotion from the Ramayana. Transfixed, Neem Karoli Baba trembled tears streaming from his eyes. For the next few weeks, I spent an hour or so sitting each day at Maharaji's feet. He didn't give formal lectures while I was there, but rather he spoke casually with his followers or sang kirtan. I was fascinated by how he would respond to questions with brief but concise wisdom, such as, just serve every creature in God's creation with humility, respect, and love. Or he would say, just sing the names of Rama and everything else will be attained. One day he turned to me, his eyes seeming to search my soul. Then shooting up a single finger, he exclaimed, Ek, Ek, Ek. God is one. At that time, I was not aware that people from the West knew of Neem Karoli Baba until the arrival of a celebrity well known in my generation, Baba Ram Das. One day while I sat at the feet of Maharaji, Ram Das and a small entourage of Westerners unexpectedly turned up at the ashram. This icon of the 1960s counterculture, formerly the controversial Professor Richard Alpert of Harvard University, had together with Timothy Leary popularized LSD as a means of expanding consciousness. Upon entering, Ram Das meekly bowed his graying head in the lap of his guru, as a small child might. Affection poured from his guru's heart as he playfully tugged the graying beard of his disciple and patted his head like a puppy. Laughing, Maharaji said, "We were waiting for you." How beautiful it was for me to see a distinguished Harvard scholar and powerful social icon enjoy being treated like a naughty little boy. Maharaji beamed a smile upon all of us, then waved his hand, exclaiming, "Jao prasadam, go take lunch." Maharaji must have mystically known of their unannounced arrival, as an amazing feast had been prepared in larger quantity than usual that day. I had the pleasure of bringing Ram Das and his entourage to some of the holy places in Vrindavan. One day we attended a kirtan and talk given by Anandamayi Ma, who had an ashram in Vrindavan. She remembered me from our meeting in the Himalayas, and as she gave her lecture to a large audience, she looked toward me and nodded, then reconfirmed the spiritual direction I was heading with the words, "Whenever you possibly can, sustain the flow of the holy name. To repeat his name is to be in his presence. If you associate with the Supreme Friend, he will reveal his true beauty to you." When the program ended, Ram Das and I fell into a soul-searching discussion. But night was falling, so he invited me to continue our talk the next day at his residence. I arrived early at the Jaipur Dharamshala, a guest house on a noisy lane with cloth shops and food stalls and congested with bicycle rickshaws honking loud rubber horns to scatter the foot traffic. Baba Ram Das opened the door, morning light beaming on his welcoming face. I looked beyond him into the room, which resembled not the residence of a distinguished professor, but that of a simple sadhu. Graciously, he led me to the only piece of furniture, a wooden bed. After offering me a seat, he too sat cross-legged, spreading out his flowing white robes. We faced each other. His graying hair streamed from his balding head and draped onto his back and shoulders. A breeze from the nearby window slightly wisped his peppered beard. His large blue eyes glowed, and the faint wrinkles in their corners creased deeply as he smiled. Speaking no words, we simply looked into each other's hearts through the channel of the eyes. Those moments seemed timeless. That long gaze we shared affected my vision in such a way that at times he looked like an innocent child, and at other times like an ancient Stoic sage. I reflected on a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. As the eternal soul passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. A sublime peace filled the room. Perhaps half an hour passed in this way before Ramdas took a deep breath, slightly shrugged his shoulders, and broke our silence with the invocation, Om. Could you tell me something about your spiritual journey? I asked him. I was eager to learn how he had come to India and how he met his guru. Ramdas shifted his weight on the wooden slab of a bed, as if readying himself for the narrative. A few years back, he began, I came to India. I brought with me a supply of LSD, hoping to find someone who might understand more about these substances than we did in the West. In my travels, I met an American sadhu, Bhagavan Das, who guided me to Neem Karoli Baba. That was in 1967. I was grieving the death of my mother. Maharaji saw into my heart and consoled me with unimaginable compassion. Without my even saying a word about my life, he could read my heart and tell the confidential details of my past. His powers, combined with his love, wisdom, and humor, transformed my life. I had a similar experience when I first met him, I said. He seemed to know everything about me. Baba Ramdas smiled. One day Maharaji asked me, where is the medicine? At first I was confused, but Bhagavan Das suggested he was asking for LSD. Intrigued, I held out 3 pills of pure LSD, and to my astonishment, he swallowed them all. I was prepared to clinically monitor his reactions, but nothing happened. Nothing. His consciousness is beyond LSD. Having myself witnessed the powers of Himalayan yogis, I laughed in wonder. Ramdas sat cross-legged with back erect. His palms rested upward on his lap. I couldn't separate myself from Maharaji's association, and so I stayed as long as I could. Accepting me as his disciple, he gave me the name Ramdas, which means servant of Lord Ram. Months passed in his extraordinary company. As influential as I was in America, Maharaji forbid me from bringing anyone to him. Ramdas shook his head in disbelief. He had no inclination for anything material, neither money, fame, or followers. I'd never seen anyone like him. Apprehending anew the love he felt for his guru, his voice began to tremble. When I sit with Maharaji, I feel that I have unconditional love for everyone in the world. In that same year, 1971, Ramdas published his story in the classic, Be Here Now. As the day passed, a sense of brotherhood grew between us as we shared the realizations and inspirations we had gained in our spiritual journeys. Before parting, I confided in him a concern that had come to weigh heavily on my mind. I said, "Mother India has become my spiritual home. I have so much still to discover, but I fear that my next visa extension will be denied, and I'll be forced to leave." Baba Ram Das closed his eyes and submerged into deep thought. Despite the commotion from the busy street outside, the room was serene. I closed my eyes as well and drifted into the tranquility of meditation. 5 minutes passed. When I opened my eyes, I found Ram Das gazing at me with a gentle smile. He said softly, "You may have to leave the geographical boundaries of India. However, you never have to leave Bharat, the spirit of India within."